Roger Corman is the king of low-budget filmmaking. He started out making supporting features for drive-in cinemas in the 1950s, always opting for fast and cheap and the quality triangle. Through trial and a lot of error, he ended up becoming a fine filmmaker. He directed 9 films in 1957 alone. But he never really made it out of the exploitation niche that he'd carved for himself. And if that's your bag, then there's no harm in it. It certainly didn't do Corman's bank balance any damage. Because of his business model, which was make a film quickly and cheaply, then, before you pull down the sets, find a desperate filmmaker and say, make me another film, you've got a week. It was very hard to lose money in a time before TV. And as a side effect, he ended up giving a lot of filmmakers their first break, including Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese and Ron Howard. In 1959, Roger Corman was approached by American International Pictures and asked to direct a horror film. Corman, having only directed 2 films that year, clearly felt he was lagging behind, so agreed. He was given a $50,000 budget and 5 days in which to shoot. Corman and the writer, Charles B. Griffith, went to a coffee bar and tossed around ideas. By the end of the day, they'd formed the basis for the film which would become A Bucket of Blood. Rather than a straight horror, this would be a satire of the beatnik art scene. A dim-witted waiter called Walter Paisley wants to desperately be an artist to impress the creative sorts who frequent the cafe in which he works. The only problem is he is completely talentless. When he accidentally kills a cat, he gets the idea to dispose of the body by covering it in clay. Of course, the artist world laps this up, and he soon becomes the darling of the scene. But the sudden thirst for bigger and better pieces of work means murders will soon follow. The camera work and lighting are not going to win any awards, but when you have to get almost 15 minutes in the can every day, you can't afford to be arty. Speaking of art, Walter's masterpieces are a little shoddy to my eye too. I'm not sure if that's a budget problem or a comment on what people like, and the fact that I have to ask that is probably a good thing. Considering everything this film had against it, it really shouldn't be as good as it actually is. The comedy is deliciously black and the satire remains relevant. It's a triumph of a good script. Normally I would wrap up this video by telling you where to see this movie, normally complaining that you can't find it on any streaming sites, or you'll have to hunt down a DVD somewhere. But this film's public domain, so you can see it legally almost anywhere. The version I'm showing clips from I found on archive.org, but it took a little tinkering. For some reason a lot of old movies have a greenish tone to them when they're scanned for budget DVD releases, so I've removed that. Also the sound was rather flat, so I boosted those levels up.
Burn gas, buggies, and whip your sour cream of circumstance. And hope. And go ahead and sleep your bloody heads off. Creation is. All else is not.
Sorry if there's a bit of a hiss, but that's the price you pay. So seeing I've taken the time to make these changes, and the film's free to distribute, I thought I'd share it here. So here you go. The 1959 Roger Corman horror comedy classic, A Bucket of Blood. Do enjoy.
I will talk to you of art, for there is nothing else to talk about.
Hello, this is Editing Scott. I'm afraid I spoke a bit too soon. It turns out that this film is public domain everywhere in the world apart from England, where Studio Canal own the rights. I've uploaded this once to YouTube already and they've blocked it. So I'm leaving a link to the archive.org address below this. Unfortunately it will be a slightly green image, but you'll have to turn the brightness down on your screen or something. Copyright is a messy thing. One day I'll dedicate an entire video to it. Do check out the link. It's a very good film. I'm Scott Kingsnorth and I'm making a movie.